This is the Television Enthusiast Podcast, The Weekly Set.
Episode 44, recorded February 18, 2016. Hello everybody, and welcome to the Weekly Set. This is episode 44 of the Weekly Set, the official podcast of TVEnthusiast.com. I am your host, Tyson, and joining me today, as always, is Will.
Hello.
So today we're just going to be talking about what we've been watching in the past week. Just a little advance notice. Next week, we're not going to be talking about what we've been watching because that's going to be our spring preview episode where we're going to go over what's coming up throughout the next 3 months. Through March, April, and May. That means Daredevil, Game of Thrones, Silicon Valley, lots of good stuff that we're going to be talking about at that point. But now we're going to be talking about some things we've been watching. Will's actually watched quite a bit of different things. We got one new show we're kind of discussing, one we've been discussing throughout the last couple weeks, and an old show that Will just finally got a chance to watch that I'm eager to talk to him about. And gonna catch up on an old series from the end of last year, a mini series that I watched. I'm gonna say a few things about, and that's pretty much it. We don't really have much news to discuss, so let's just jump right into the discussion. Let's start off with The Magicians. This is something we've been talking about week to week. Are you still in there with me? You still loving it?
I'm still in there. I'm still loving it. Da, 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 da.
Yeah, it's doing great. I'm enjoying it moment to moment. I still don't think that this episode has passed what the last episode did for me. I think episode 4 was really good. I think with Sci-Fi, maybe their episode 4 is going to be like their episode 9 for Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
it's going to be like their super hook episode, you know?
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, episode 9 is going to be your super hook episode.
Because they've been doing it with episode 4 now, because they did it with The Expanse had a great 4th episode too, and then this has been so far the strongest episode of the series was the 4th episode of The Magicians. But we're talking about the 5th episode of The Magicians, in which our protagonist Quentin finds out that his father has cancer.
Oh, yep. He finds out his father has cancer, and he looks for ways to. Well, he figures he could cure it with magic, but the answer is no.
Yeah,
it's a firm no.
Yeah.
So there's that storyline, and then there's the storyline with Julia. The continuing storyline with Julia is where she's been kicked out of Breakbills, or she wasn't admitted to Breakbills, and now she has been cast aside by the hedgewit that she was that she had partnered up with or had taken on as like
a mentor of sorts.
Yeah. And she's been cast aside, and so now she's desperate to find a way to learn magic.
Resorting to Google Magic. I love that term.
Google.
I mean, it's all you're using Google Magic. It's like that just makes it sound like something real. Like I could totally imagine Google Magic being a thing, you know? Like right. Magic.google.com, just like we have Google Maps and Google Shopping, and you know. Why not Google Magic?
Yeah. Google Magic. Oh, that's great. Google Magic. It's like she's got like this weird, like, I don't know what's going on. Like she has sex with that guy. She full on cheats on her boyfriend. But then later in the episode, like, she's upset that they made her boyfriend forget her. And she's like, oh, I love him. It's like, then why'd you have sex with me?
I think her having sex with him was totally a power play.
It was
totally like trying to get more influence over him. Like she saw that he liked her, and she wanted to kind of exhort more get more influence over him. So she put out. And as far as her boyfriend goes, that's like almost a whole different thing. It's kind of like her holding on to that last aspect of her old life that she doesn't want to let go of yet, because she's like afraid, It doesn't seem like she really cares that much about him, so much as she does about her path and magic now, but that she just needs like that lifeline to her old life.
Right.
So, yeah, that's what was happening there. one thing we can talk about now is we got to see a cancer puppy.
Cancer puppy. That was sad.
Yeah.
That was sad.
Quentin tried to cure Cancer Puppy as a way to see if he could do the magic to cure his father. There is some magic that can work towards like curing cancer or doing something like that. It just, nobody's been able to accomplish it. It's just kind of like there's some loose magic. It's kind of unexplored area or not explored enough. And it's considered ridiculously hard to perform and requires too much energy. And Quentin thought he could do it. He had hope that he could do it. And he tried to test it out on Cancer Puppy, which is this like over 100-year-old puppy that's basically been kept alive through enchantment. But even though it's kept alive, it's still susceptible to like all manner of illness. So it's just riddled with cancer. And in trying to test it out on the dog, very quickly ends up accidentally killing the dog. So we got to see the mascot of the physical house and got to say goodbye to it in the same scene.
Right.
So yeah, that's, now I guess their new mascot's gonna be the Humping Books.
Their new mascot is going to be the Humping Bucks. It's going to be like their logo too, you know?
Yeah.
It's going to be, we got an interesting thing with, that one guy. I forget his name. It starts with a P. I know that.
Penny?
Penny. Yeah, Penny.
He got paired up with a mentor.
He got paired up with a mentor. His mentor.
From Lost.
His mentor was not sunshine and rainbows though.
It was Tom from Lost.
Okay.
The other. He's like the first other we meet. The one that was like, you know, you can't cross this line that he said to like Kate.
Yeah.
And then later on we found out like he's the other that was gay and then he was playing football with Jack and so that was him if you didn't recognize him. So a little Lost alum there.
Yeah, I didn't recognize him. But anyway, what we get with Penny is like Penny actually astral projects into like this weird dungeon where we see this woman, she's like all tied up and stuff. She's screaming for help. And then the villain from the first episode, the moth guy shows up and he's like interrogating her. And so that was like really, really creepy. And that was the first time we got to see that character like since the pilot.
Mm-hmm. We got a reference last week with just like Quentin seeing moths in his vision. And then this week we actually got to see him for real again through astral projection. So real, but in a different area.
Yeah.
And we got a little hint at what that area might be at the end of the episode.
Yep, it's a place in Fillory.
Yeah. Penny's girl convinces him to take his drawing of what he took of like a crest that was in that dungeon.
Yeah.
To Quentin and the other girl, blonde Hermione.
Bad Game of Thrones fan art.
Yeah. So he takes it to Quentin and blonde Hermione, and Quentin immediately notices something on it, starts flipping through one of his books, and it's a symbol from Fillory, and he says, "I think you were in Fillory." So you can kind of guess where the conversation's going to go next week from that, if you've already seen Penny's attitude towards Quentin's fantasy stuff. So
yeah, Penny hasn't had the most positive
impression of
Fillory.
Yeah. So that's where we left off for the episode. I'm trying to think of what else happened within this episode. Well, I mean, blonde Hermione came back. I'm just going to call her that because I can't remember the character's name. Blonde Hermione came back in this episode, after leaving in the third episode when her brother, when Quentin put her brother out. It was nice to see that she doesn't hold animosity towards Quentin for that. That was kind of a nice thing in the episode, that Quentin was kind of reluctant to approach her. And then, when they got to talking, I mean, she was angry about the situation, but she knew that she couldn't blame him, which is nice. It just means that we're not going to have like this weird tacked on melodrama that we really didn't need. You know,
Yeah,
there's so
yeah.
much going on already that, you know, we don't really need like a weird tacked on melodrama of her like resenting him. So
No,
that's nice.
Yeah, so that's, yeah, it's nice that there's not going to be like this whole, oh, I hate him so much, like, storyline. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
We also got to see that, that the other, people from the physical dorm, including, Elliot is his name, the very kind of eccentric, what's the counterculture looking guy, are really obsessed with, blonde Hermione's aunt, who apparently throws some crazy parties, and they want to try to, have her mentor them. And so they're kind of fighting for, her affection.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily go their way, so, but
No.
it's funny to see that the aunt be so amused.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny to be the aunt be so amused. So basically, that's the episode.
Yeah, it's a good episode. It's, like I said, it still hasn't topped what's happened in the 4th episode. But it was great to see the Beast again. He's still chilling. He's still a scary guy.
Yeah.
And it's really that ending note of like, I think you were in Fillory was really cool.
That was really cool. Yeah. And,
We didn't know how long it was going to take before they were going to start really tying that in, like that Fillory is real or something. You know, it seemed obvious that they were going to start tying that in at some point, but it's fairly early on to be in 5 episodes and they're already approaching that idea.
Yeah.
But that's the episode. Next episode airs next week and we'll talk about that then. Actually, no, we won't. We'll talk about it the next week because next week we're doing our preview, our spring preview. So next up on the docket here, Pushing Daisies. So you got to watch the pilot episode of Pushing Daisies, which, by the way, if anybody's looking for it, it's on CW Seed. It's actually something that Will and I have been talking about, like trying to figure out if there was a place to watch it for quite a while. And then I eventually just found out it was there by some circumstance, like some happenstance. I think I was looking there for something else and just saw it there and was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
So, if you are one of the many, who never got a chance to see Pushing Daisies, you can check it out on CW Seed, which is where Will got to see the first episode, the pilot. This is a series from Brian Fuller, who we love for Hannibal and Dead Like Me. I think this is probably his second best series. It's weird. I think his series are literally have escalated in quality one after the other. Like Dead Like Me was his first series and I love it, but I think Wonder Falls, which was his second series, is better. And I think, Pushing Daisies is better than Wonder Falls. And I think Hannibal was like a huge step over Pushing Daisies.
So
that was like his biggest step up of all.
So you think he just gets better and better and better?
Oh yeah, so far, I mean, that's been the case, at least for me. So we'll have to see how that continues because Hannibal's a pretty high bar. But you know, hey, he's working on American Gods, which is pretty crazy. So who knows? But back to Pushing Daisies, very different show from Hannibal. Kind of the polar opposite. I mean, even just in looks, even just in the general aesthetic of the shows. Like Hannibal's this kind of like oily, it kind of looks like this rich, dark oil painting on like a black canvas. That's just kind of, you know, it looks like a painting. It looks oily, you know? And then you look at like Pushing Daisies and it looks like, you know, Tim Burton, like Big Fish era, you know? It's bright and colorful and really super saturated. What are your thoughts on Pushing Daisy, having seen the first episode now?
I like it. It's really good, really well done. It is like a bright and colorful TV show, which is interesting. The aesthetic is very interesting. You know, it's got, especially because of the subject matter, you know, like everything Brian Fuller has done so far, I guess, with the exception of Wonder Falls, I don't really know, is,
has really dark background roots. Everything is done. So like, I mean, Pushing Daisies is a really bright and colorful, really fun show, very lighthearted most of the time. But if you actually just look at what the general premise is, the main character is basically a necromancer. He's basically can bring people back from the dead at the expense of another life. So it's dark material, but done in this very light way. And, up until Hannibal, which is just outwardly dark, that's kind of been his thing. I mean, Dead Like Me was similar. Dead Like Me had a very dark premise, but for the most part, it was pretty lighthearted the way it was presented.
Right. So it's similar to Dead Like Me in that respect.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's interesting because it deals with death, like most of Brian Fuller's stuff seems to deal with death as a theme.
Mm-hmm.
Dead Like Me, obviously, Pushing Daisies, Hannibal. Like I said, I don't know about Wonder Falls, but the concept of death seems to be something that Brian Fuller is preoccupied with.
So what you're saying is that Brian Fuller needs to write and direct the Thanos movie.
Yeah. Brian Fuller is Thanos, actually.
Yeah, he's obsessed with death.
He's obsessed with death, yeah. But he legit seems to be obsessed with death.
So tell me a little bit more about what you thought of Pushing Daisies. The dialogue's very different. Like, Hannibal, the dialogue is it's kind of slow and everything is very meaningful. In Pushing Daisies, the dialogue is so fast that, like, it's just, I mean, you could just imagine the size of the scripts for the show had to be massive. Just because the characters blast through so much dialogue in such a short period of time.
Right? Yeah, they blast. Yeah, they go through. Yeah, they talk a lot. They talk pretty fast.
It's all flowery, everything they say.
Yeah, it's all flowery, everything they say. I thought it was pretty good. I wasn't exactly blown away or anything by it, but I thought it was solid. I like the characters. They're all interesting in their own way. The main character is like, it's hard to describe. He's
Ronan the Accuser from Guardians of the Galaxy.
He's like this quiet type, you know, and he doesn't want to get involved with anything, but he's involved with this detective, this sassy detective who has him bringing people to life so he can help the detective solve murders, basically.
I remember a scene in the pilot episode when I think it was he decided because he revived Chuck, who is the female lead on the show, and decided to not kill her. And when there's a certain time limit after he revives somebody in which he has to kill them again, or somebody else will die.
Right. And
his partner finds out, his sassy partner, as he said, finds out that he isn't going to touch her and goes bolting out of the building.
So as to make sure that he's not the person who dies.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Thankfully it was the funeral home director who ended up dying in her stead. But now it's this dynamic to where if he touches her again, she will die forever and can't bring her back.
Yeah, so he's in love with her, and their relationship is really cute because he loves her, but it's almost like puritanical. It almost reminds me of like an anime relationship where you see the characters get really nervous about holding hands or something, which, in their case, there's a real reason to be nervous about holding hands because if their skin touches, she'll die. But even beyond that, it's beyond just the danger. There's this kind of nervousness and kind of childish aspect to it.
Yeah, it's definitely very childish. You tell at the end there where they're holding the monkeys up together and they're making the monkeys kiss as a surrogate, and they're looking at each other yeah, this is what we'd totally be doing.
It's very sweet and very cute. Yeah. And that's what Pushing Daisies is. It's not going to blow you away in the way like Hannibal. It's not that kind of thing.
I like when he's holding his own hand behind his back and she does the same, and they're holding each other's hand.
Yeah. That's what Pushing Daisies is. So that kind of dynamic and that kind of feeling, that's what the show is, I mean, you're gonna get into it and there's all sorts of cool stuff. There's musical moments especially with Olive, who's the other girl that likes him as well, the tiny blonde woman that works at his pie shop. And that's kind of what the show is, and it continues to just look beautiful as it always does. It's always very lush and beautiful and just very not in our world. world, you know? I guess that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, this is not in our world, absolutely.
This is like a fairy tale, like a storybook.
Yeah, and down to like the narrator. They got this narrator, and he gives you like details about like the characters and stuff that you don't get from just like the visuals or the dialogue.
So the narrator that you're talking about is actually, it's Jim Dale, who's a British actor who lives in America. He actually does the audiobooks for Harry Potter.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So if you listen to the Harry Potter audiobooks, that's Jim Dale. It's the same guy who does the narration for Pushing Daisies that reads Harry Potter. So
okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. So he's a very good voice worker. He has a very like soothing grandfatherly voice. It makes you want to have him read you a story. So yeah, Pushing Daisies sounds like it was a hit for you. Like you said, didn't blow you away. It's never going to. That's not the kind of show it is. It's not like Hannibal. It's not going to have like a oh my god moment. It's more just like about the charm of it all, you know, like how charming everything is. It's charming in a way that like Once Upon a Time only wishes it could be.
Yeah, totally. 100. I agree there. 100%.
Yeah. So it's a cool show. I mean, and even down to the name, if you think about it, I mean, Pushing Daisies, that means to die, you know? So that just kind of sums up what Brian Fuller is like as far as like these earlier shows. Now he's handling darker material with like Hannibal and stuff, and now with American Gods. But before that, you look at his stuff and it kind of had that atmosphere. A really dark premise, but done very beautifully. So
right.
Pushing Daisies is just a very whimsical way of saying die, you know? So yeah, glad you liked it. Hope you continue to watch it. We'll talk some more about that, but we're going to move on now and talk about, 11/22/63. This is the Stephen King adaptation on Hulu. This is Hulu's first, like, real foray into original content. They've done a few other things, mostly comedies, you know, some imports from other countries, but as far as like a true original, this is like their House of Cards, you know, this is their first, like, real effort. It's James Franco in the lead. The series is produced by J.J. Abrams, and as I said, it's an adaptation of a book by Stephen King. And it is basically about the Kennedy assassination, although this episode isn't too heavily about that specifically. And it is about time travel. So what are your kind of general thoughts of 11/22/63?
I loved it. I love this. This was great. It's what made it like really cool. It's not just like the concept of like James Franco going back in time to stop the assassination, because yeah, that's what it's about.
It's like 3 years off. And it's not like he can go in through that door and he's immediately where he needs to be. He has to hang around there for like 3 years.
Yeah, he has to hang out. Well, it's not even that. It's like the whole concept, like they introduce this concept where you can't change the past because the past will push back or it will fight back. And then, and you get that, but then when you actually see it, that's what it starts getting like really cool. There's a scene where like he's following this guy into a restaurant and like all kinds of stuff starts happening just to prevent him from changing anything, like a fire, like a waiter drops something, then like
something that burned his predecessor.
Something that burned his predecessor. There's a fire. He's got bypass, and then a chandelier falls from like the ceiling or something and almost hits him. And it's like it's like some Final Destination stuff or something. You know?
I was just gonna say that it kind of reminded me of Final Destination. Which like you feel this like presence of, in Final Destination it was death, and then this it's time, where it's kind of like a concept rather than a person, but that concept almost feels like it has a personality and a, you know, like it's sentient. The concept itself is sentient, it does give like a Final Destination vibe, but it doesn't, like, the whole show isn't just about this pushback. It's which means it's not overused, so it doesn't feel like you're watching Final Destination until one of those moments happen. All of a sudden there's tension.
Also, yeah, there's like super tension. I think there's like another another moment too where he's hiding, like these guys are after him because he snuck into a place he wasn't supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And he decides to hide in this room, but all of a sudden there's like a million roaches or something, and they're crawling all over him. And then and he leaves and he gets caught. And it's like, that was another like super creepy moment.
Yeah, it's like a sanity effect in Eternal Darkness, or
yeah. So even,
something out of Silent Hill, or
but I thought it was like really good how they set it up and everything. Like they got to the main premise of the show like really quick too. Like they did not like mess around. There was like only like a little bit of his life and stuff in the present day before they jump in and say, oh yeah, portal to 1960 over there.
That switch was a bit abrupt. That was probably one of the worst moments in the episode for me. When like all of a sudden like that guy is like back and he's all sickly. Like the guy that runs the shop that he's at, it's like he's like, oh, there you are, and he's like falling over and looks all haggard and stuff, and it's like he's like, what the hell happened in 2 minutes?
Yeah, I know.
It's such like a, you know, it makes sense as far as like how they explain it in the plot, but it also feels kind of just off. Like it's such a huge shift in like the tone of the series up to that point.
But it worked for me because it was like, yes, we're actually going to get to like the good stuff. So I didn't care. I was like, okay, so yeah, we're skipping all the boring exposition and we're just going right into the good stuff.
That's another thing is that I know a lot of people have criticized about this episode is that the exposition was pretty heavy. It was like doled out, like basically straight up told.
Yeah, it was.
It's basically the guy in the diner talking to him, basically laying out all the rules and saying everything, you know, which I think some people didn't like as much, you know, and there were times where I'm like, oh, I don't know if I like the way this is being told. But it's kind of a weird, the concept is kind of weird when you think about it as being like, this isn't like somebody using a time machine or somebody accessing magic. It's somebody like literally walking into a closet and ending up in the 60s.
Right.
And there's like a kind of tonal challenge in being able to handle that and make it feel kind of authentic. And I think kind of like just up front going like, okay, we're just going to plow through some of the kind of ridiculous rules and concepts here, put a little tongue-in-cheek humor in there, and then we're going to get to the actual show.
Right.
I think there's something that kind of works about that, you know, as much as it hurt that scene in the episode and felt really off, like once that was out of the way, the show felt a lot better than it would have if he had been discovering it all along or something. It would have kind of felt like, oh, they're stretching out this exposition. So yeah, I liked kind of the way that they got that out of the way. Honestly, I think the best scene in the whole episode was just the opening scene of literally just a close-up shot of an actor's face as he talks about his family being killed.
Yeah, right.
And
that was the best scene. Yeah, that was.
It was so haunting and sad, and the actor is amazing and did a great job of really conveying this kind of subtle emotion.
Yeah,
it's not like he was bawling or bursting out, but you could see it like welling up inside him, and it was really good, a really good performance.
That was a good actor. He played he played as an angel on the show Saving Grace, which was on TNT like a few years back.
He's been on a few things. He's been in a lot of westerns, I know, and he was
I think he was on Deadwood too.
I believe so, yeah. And he was in Rectify, I think, last season, which is a really good show, and he played a really kind of weird character in that was kind of cool. So definitely a good actor. Amazing way to open a show. To go into this kind of thing, it's like you're so focused on the date with the show is named after and Kennedy, and he starts talking about the day he remembers, and you're like, oh, he's going to talk about when he heard about the Kennedy being shot or something, and no, he's talking about something 3 years earlier. And it's a story, and it's completely unrelated to any of that, and it's captivating. And it really draws you in, and it makes you like care about that character very quickly which in turn makes you care about James Franco's character, because James Franco character also cares about.
Right.
And so I think that was kind of a clever way of getting you quickly on board with the character.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
And I'm also really excited that instead of like every week being like, how are we going to save Kennedy this week? You know, like we're just going to keep resetting and trying to save Kennedy over and over again. I like this kind of longer form approach. And I like that like the episode ends with him basically being like, I don't know if I can do this. I'm heading out. And you think like, oh, he's driving back to the spot where he can re-enter the diner. No, he's going off to where this guy was from, because he knows Halloween 1960 is right around the corner, and he's going to stop.
And he's going to stop this. If he said, you know, he decides he can't save Kennedy, but he can save somebody.
Yeah.
So that's what he's going to go do.
And that was very exciting for me. I was like, oh yeah. So it bookended the episode with having it open and end on that. It makes me really excited about where the show's going to go, that it's not going to be singularly focused on Kennedy. And the idea that if he screws something up, he has to go back and redo that whole thing.
Yeah.
Because everything resets. And if he does that, if he redoes the whole thing, you know, what does that mean for the guy? I mean, if he didn't go through this hardship in his life, you know, he doesn't necessarily end up in this bad position that he did as like a janitor, but maybe he ends up, you know, as some horrible person, or, you know, it's kind of like the butterfly effect. And,
we don't know what effect anything he's going to do is having on the past is going to have on the future. And, you know, that's one of the points brought up at the beginning, but the guy he's talking to doesn't really care about that.
Yeah. And you can see why. It's because the guy he's talking to he's a Vietnam veteran. And so his idea isn't to save Kennedy. It's that, you know, save Kennedy and you save Robert Kennedy possibly as well. You perhaps stop the Vietnam War, which is his real goal in that. But if you think about that, if you think about what happened with the Vietnam War, like in our reality, and the kind of backlash against the Vietnam War, if we didn't go to Vietnam, like our country could have been a very different place. I mean, much different than I think a lot of people would expect, just because of the cultural impact of like hippies that were on our country and kind of how that pushed progressive politics forward.
Right, yeah, definitely.
And if they would have had that momentum if they didn't have such a strong cause to fight against.
Right.
You know? So it makes me really fascinated to like see what any changes he makes, like what they're going to affect and how they're going to affect things.
Yeah, that makes me super interested too. So I'm interested to see that. It's interesting. Unlike other streaming services, Hulu didn't put up the whole series at once.
Yeah, just one episode, a very long episode, but just one episode.
Yeah, just one episode. So we gotta wait till the next one. I don't know what the schedule is.
It's Monday, so it's gonna come out every Monday. I don't think there's any time. Like, I think it's just gonna go up at midnight on Monday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it's supposed to be weekly on Mondays. That and Better Call Saul on Mondays now. Great lineup for Mondays.
Excellent lineup for Mondays.
Let's move on from that. Do you have anything else to say about it?
Nope.
Good show. Hope you guys, watch it and enjoy it. Lastly, I'm going to talk about The Last Kingdom. Now, this is something that Will hasn't seen. We've talked about it before on the podcast. So I remember when we were doing, I think it was the winter preview, last year. No, not the winter preview. I think it was the fall preview last year. We had mentioned this show. It's a mini series. It's like a one season and done thing about, the Anglo-Saxon period of, England. And when we talked about it, we were talking about how close the plot resembled, like as written on paper at least, resembled the Fire Emblem game, which ironically is like just coming out now in the US. But Fire Emblem Fates, in that it has this story in which the main character is he's born Anglo-Saxon, he's like royalty, or like nobility, I guess, and he is abducted by the Danes, who are like Vikings, and raised under them. And so in all intents and purposes, he becomes very like a Dane. He becomes like a Viking. Like that's his mentality. He believes in Odin, you know, he's not Christian. He has that kind of warlike mentality. He has like a brother that's like, you know, not his brother by blood, but, you know, that he grew up with, that he has this close bond with. And, you know, he has this father and this grandfather figure that he deeply cares about, that, you know, basically kidnapped him when he was a child, but raised him as well. And so he's like stuck between worlds, and like an event occurs in which he kind of loses a lot of his family, his Dane family, and he ends up having to look towards, if he's going to go back to, the Anglo-Saxon side of his life.
Right.
And so it's that conflict of like, you know, in Fire Emblem Fates, the conflict is, you know, they have the two versions of the game. One is called Conquest, which would be, in this case, that would be like the Dane side, and the other is called Birthright, which is, you know, it's basically the same kind of concept.
It's the same concept. It's Fire Emblem Fates.
Yeah. So. Fire Emblem Fates, the TV series. So yeah, it's actually pretty good. It's kind of, it's fun. It's fun because of the Dane element of it. Like the Viking element of it adds a lot of fun to it, because otherwise the characters are really stiff. Like the Anglo-Saxon side are like deeply religious and very stiff, but having the main character kind of come from this other side and just constantly seem like a bit amused by how stiff the Christian side is, like the Anglo-Saxon side.
Right.
But then having to deal and work with them and having to kind of constantly second guess himself whether he's doing the right thing by siding with the Anglo-Saxons or if he needs to side with the Danes, and kind of times where he will kind of go against one side for another, and the motivations behind it. It's a fun watch. It's I believe 10 episodes. I'm not sure exactly where you would watch it now. It's just been sitting on my DVR since like December. And I just finally got around to watching it.
Finally got around to checking it out.
Yeah, I'd seen the first 3 episodes around when they aired, and then the rest just sat on my DVR, and then I just said, you know what, I'm gonna plow through these. And so I did it like, you know, in like 2 or 3 days. I got through the remaining 7 episodes. Yeah, it's a pretty good series. If you have looked at the storyline for Fire Emblem Fates and that like fascinated you, look into this, The Last Kingdom. It's a pretty decent show.
The Last Kingdom. What channel is that on?
It was on BBC America in the US. So
oh, gotcha. Okay.
It might be on AMC's website, because I know AMC owns BBC America as well as like IFC and Sundance and stuff. So it might be on AMC's website, or it might just show up on Netflix later. I'm not sure where you can watch it right now. But it's a pretty good show. There's some cool like war scenes, because they do have like these battles, like clashes between these different armies and stuff. So there are some kind of cool war scenes from that. And, yeah, it's pretty violent. And if you're into that kind of stuff, if you're into the kind of, the Game of Thrones betrayals and backstabbings and, butchery and all that kind of stuff.
Can't get enough of betrayals, backstabbing, and butchery.
Yeah.
The 3 Bs.
Makes the world go around,
Yeah, right.
But if you like those 3 Bs, yeah, check out The Last Kingdom. It's definitely a worthwhile watch. It's also kind of cool that it's just 10 episodes, because it makes it like a low commitment, It's 10 episodes and that's it. There's no more. The way it ends is kind of strange, I'll say right off the bat. Like, it leaves something big kind of unresolved, and it basically ends with the character talking about going to resolve that very thing. So I don't know if they were planning on doing like a second series that continues that character's adventures, but that's like a side to everything else. Like the actual title of the show, The Last Kingdom, everything that title implies and that's connected there, and the idea of like the birth of England as a singular nation and stuff is completely covered within the scope of this miniseries. But I could see them perhaps going back and doing like a new series following that character as he takes this other path that he is following. But that it wouldn't be like The Last Kingdom season 2, because basically it would have like, most of the characters that were in the wouldn't be in it because they're not related to this other story. And but I almost kind of want to see it continue, just because that part of the story was fun enough that I'm like, it'd be kind of cool to see. But yeah, that's it. That's The Last Kingdom. And that's it for the podcast in general tonight. We don't really have any news to talk about, so I'm just going to very quickly say that this Sunday, February 21st, is the return on HBO of both Girls and Togetherness. I don't watch either of those shows.
I don't watch either of those shows either. I've
seen an episode of Togetherness. It's actually decent. I don't know if I'd have the time to watch it with all the other stuff I watch, though. Girls is kind of like the female Entourage to me. I hate it.
Yeah. Girls, I don't like that show at all.
Yeah, so Togetherness a better show, but I don't know, with everything else on my plate, I just don't have time for it. But yeah, if you're into either of those shows, that's Sunday, February 21st. They're back. That's all that's coming back this next week. We'll be talking about what's coming back, not just the week after, but the next 3 months on our next podcast. So stay tuned for that, our spring preview. Thank you, everybody, for listening today. I'm your host, Tyson, and Will joined me today, as always.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
If you would like to voice your opinion, send an email to theweeklyset@TVEnthusiast.com. TV Enthusiast is a part of the Enthusiast Media Network. Stay tuned to TV Enthusiast and the Weekly Set podcast for more